the Nurtured Nurturer podcast. I'm Beth, here for the counsellors, therapists and nurturers who need a little looking after. In today's episode of the Nurtured Nurturer, we're diving into perfectionism, our own experiences of it, what tends to lie beneath it, and how we can begin to move through it with more kindness and awareness. The reason why we're talking about this is because of something that's happened today. I mean, it's not a major thing, but it's followed on from sort of a small chain of events, let's just say. So it felt really relevant to choose this as our subject. And so basically, what happened was last week we recorded our first Nurtured Nurturer podcast. Now, it went actually, considering we have limited experience doing this, it was pretty good actually when I listened to it back.
It was.
And it's not perfect, but then we always say we're not aiming for perfect. And I know in my heart that we're not aiming for perfect and that perfect isn't actually possible. However, when I listen to it, despite kind of thinking, oh, well, actually, considering that was our first attempt, it was pretty good. Despite that, I decided that I would like to record it again because I'd realized something really specific that I do. And it was actually something that I'd noticed on the same day during a client session. And when I listened to the podcast, I could hear myself doing it again. And so I thought, okay, well, but if we record it again, then I can fix that. It seemed perfectly reasonable to me. And I suppose on one level it kind of is, but then actually you can keep doing that until the cows come home. There's always going to be something. And so anyway, I said to Neve, oh well, a few days ago, actually, I'd like to record that one again. When we do our recording on Wednesday, can we record the first podcast again? Because I feel like there's something that I want to sort of put right. And at the time, you were sort of, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I think, no, maybe there's part, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounded like there's part of you that thought, oh, we had a practice, let's do the real one now, sort of thing. Um, but I think one of the things is that it completely kind of ignores the magic, maybe, of spontaneity.
We
So,
had some good things came up in that conversation that are
yeah,
worth saving. And it's quite difficult to, when we work with clients, we're asking them to take a step back from perfectionism. You know, we'll never be, you can aim for whatever you like, but if you're not able to enjoy life as it is and be good enough with
yeah,
what you have, then we're asking our clients to make this step and make this adjustment to an outlook, but we
mm,
have to be prepared to do it ourselves. We're not aiming for perfect. There's some amazing podcasters out there who do some amazing work. We are having a conversation between ourselves, having noticed something that both of us have found in our professional work where we know how to create a world that we're happy in. We know how to create a space where mental health can flourish, and we don't do it for ourselves.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree. And I think as well is what comes up for me is that sometimes, or a lot of the time actually, we don't realize that the perfectionism or the imposter syndrome or the rescuing or whatever it is has stepped in. There's this kind of feeling that, oh, we're counselors, we're therapists, we don't do that anymore, do we fixed all that, didn't we? We had all that, we've had all the therapy, maybe still having the therapy, we did all that training. But actually, these coping mechanisms, which in the Nurtured Counsellor program we call quicksands, they are they are slippery, they are subtle, they can still rear their heads even years into becoming a counsellor.
Yep. And they disguise themselves as solid, stable ground.
Yes,
We
yes,
know
they
what we're
do.
doing, so it won't bother us
Mm,
until we suddenly find that it does.
yeah, yeah. And in a weird kind of way, because maybe it's something that we've relied on for so long, maybe it feels like solid ground because we're used to it.
It's familiar.
Mm. Because, I think that there are lots of reasons why in our profession, doing what we do, we can still easily succumb to perfectionism, to imposter syndrome, to sort of lone wolf syndrome. It's because the work that we do is so nuanced and complicated. The situations that we come up against in our profession they are unusual and complex, and we can get triggered without even realizing it. That's just so easy, despite the fact that we think that we've done all the work. And also, let's face it, a lot of us are wounded healers. A lot of us have come into this profession because, maybe partly because of past trauma and adversity. And, yes, we've done a lot of work on the triggers. We understand them, but they can still show up in new and surprising ways, as I have found, because I didn't realize that I was being a perfectionist, but now I think about it, I realize I was being a perfectionist about the podcast.
I think if we can create a space where people in our profession can sit back and go, yeah, that didn't work. You know, we're so busy trying to hold everything. We're so careful to hold boundaries. We're so careful to protect our clients. We forget about protecting ourselves.
Yes,
Um, and
yes.
we don't create a space where it's okay to be not okay.
Mm,
And we run ourselves. We don't notice that we're running ourselves out of resources
mm,
until we've actually hit rock bottom because we're so good at coping.
yeah,
And that's where the quicksand lies.
yes, yes, absolutely,
And because
absolutely.
we fall from such a great height, it takes that much longer, first of all, to notice that we're falling, but also it takes so much longer to climb back up.
Mm,
It's why we
yeah,
get burnout. It's why we get people leaving the profession.
yeah. So I think now is perhaps a good time for me to explain a bit more about what these quicksands are.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, they're basically coping mechanisms that can come up when working in our role, when working in any role, but I think it comes up in specific and new and interesting ways in the role that we work in. and they are patterns, they are coping mechanisms, which a lot of them you'll have already heard of, like imposter syndrome, like perfectionism, like rescuing, like people pleasing, and you know, they they can they rear their heads and they basically stop us from thrive. They can stop us from thriving in our role. They can most certainly sort of invade our well-being and our sort of thoughts outside the work, outside sessions. It can mean that we don't sort of fully utilize our spare time because we're worrying about client work, or and the perfectionism and everything else obviously can also still take place in the rest of our lives as well, with our families, and all the rest of it. And I think that the fact that people know that we are counselors, and they know that, and so they kind of think, oh well, oh, Beth or Neve, they're going to be able to deal with this because they're a counsellor. And then that just encourages that perfectionism even more.
The perfectionism isn't always, it doesn't always look like perfectionism. If that doesn't sound too weird, it looks like I'm coping. I'm
Mm,
fine. I'm a really nice person. Oh, sure, I'm down on a Saturday afternoon out with your friends, and somebody says, "Hey, I'm having a really tough time," and 3 hours later, you find yourself, you know,
mm,
it's always being that listening ear because you've got the training to carry heavy weights,
mm,
and because they're not physical weights, because it's not physical labor, we are literally sat in a chair listening to people.
mm,
It's not seen as the same as having a physically intensive job.
mm.
We're not
Yeah.
seen as doing anything. So I've done physical jobs. I've done not quite farm work, but hard labor jobs where it was incredibly physical. And the emotional labor that I do with this job leaves me just as wiped out, if not more wiped out. You know,
Mm,
you go home
yeah.
at the end of the day and there's nothing left for my family. There's nothing left for me, for my creativity, for my space to do the things I enjoy.
Mm,
There's nothing left over. And it's about creating a space where we can we can look at our lives and the same way as with our tech, with our gadgets. If my battery's at 50%, I'll start thinking about, putting it on low energy mode or finding the charger. And it'll get down to maybe 30% or 20%, and then I'll charge it. But with ourselves, we let ourselves get down to zero.
yeah. Yeah.
Can't We have to think about recharging ourselves a little
Mm,
bit sooner. We have to put ourselves further up in the food chain.
yeah. Yeah. And part of that is about being able to recognize
Yeah.
when we are slipping into these old patterns. So, using this podcast as a prime example, I just thought, oh yeah, we'll just do it again. That's all right. And but that takes up my time. I'm very busy. And
Physical time and mental energy.
yes, yes, absolutely. And what if I'd done that and wasn't happy with that one either? I mean, it could have gone on forever. So this is an example of, oh no, I'm not being a perfectionist. It's just like, if we could just change this bit.
Or it could have been my turn to go, nope, you know, because I am not, this is not a comfortable medium for me. I do client work online, which is fine, but recording it and putting it out there, putting myself out there, my comfort zone is here. At the moment, I'm over here going, where's the map? But I think that I hope that there are other therapists out there, other people in the caring world out there who have the same mindset as me, going, I think it's just me.
Mm.
Hopefully you're out there. Hi, my people. Um,
Well, there's two of us here now, so
we're all so busy at trying to be perfect, trying to
yeah,
be the best therapist, and we can't be
no,
because underneath all of it, we're human, but we're just so used to doing heavy labor on an emotional level that we don't recognize when our own resources are running out
yeah,
because we see people who have already run out.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that what can feed in to some of these quicksands, including perfectionism, is the fact that we, generally speaking, in our profession, we all care so much. There is a reason why we have come into this role,
Yes.
you know, and it means that, basically it means that we're passionate about helping people. We're passionate about helping people with their emotional and mental health. And, that is important. But we are not superheroes. And because I realized I perfectionism isn't necessarily something that I've related to until really quite recently. People pleasing, yes. And being a bit of a lone wolf, yes, sort of a bit of resignation in there, yes, these kind of patterns come in. I hadn't really identified so much with perfectionism until actually I was putting together the Nurtured Counsellor program. And because I realized it was because I cared about it so much, it was something that I was really passionate about, that I was getting really pernickety about it and saying, oh, I'll just change this bit. No, I'll just change this bit. So something that, I mean, it did turn into a bigger project than I expected it to. It absolutely did. But equally, as well, I think that it took about 3 months longer than I expected because I was being a bit of a perfectionist as well. But of course, it's important to be kind to yourself about that. If you're experiencing something similar and thinking, "Oh yeah, I really identify with that." I mean, we all know. We all say to our clients, when you realise something, it's important to be kind to yourself about it.
Yeah, and introducing the first step of getting to know yourself and healing that relationship you have with yourself when you're trying to recover from people pleasing and when you're trying to recover from perfectionism or any of these wonderful, wonderful things that we all pick up. Self kindness, self care, self worth, self esteem. None of those words are selfish.
No.
Okay. And if you can learn to be kind to yourself and accept kindness from yourself, then it makes taking that next step easier because you've given yourself the freedom to fail. When
Mm,
you're, I know we did work ourselves with the artist's way, and I know it's something we want to bring in here, but with any form of creativity, with any form of creating art, the first thing they say to you is give yourself permission to create bad art.
mm,
It's not failing, it's giving yourself the space to try things. Color
mm,
outside the lines, wear odd socks, have something in your daily life that you would consider not normal. Because then you
mm,
can look at it and go, it's okay, I wear odd socks and the world hasn't ended.
mm, mm. Yes, yes. I mean, think of all that amazing art out there that wouldn't actually exist unless uh, somebody had done the versions before it. And, I'm not comparing our podcast to Michelangelo's David or anything like that, but we're doing this for a reason. This is
Yeah.
important to us. We think it's an important subject. We really want to help people who nurture others to be able to nurture themselves. If I'm recording episode 1, 50 times before actually putting it out there, then I don't think that's helpful to anybody.
No, and this isn't a finished discussion. This isn't a finished object. This is not perfect. It's an exploration. It's a start of us figuring out what it is so that we can figure out how to support ourselves through it.
Mm,
And
mm,
it's creating a space to let other people know that, hey, there's two of us here. We're not perfect. Um, Welcome to our club. I don't know.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's really important to say, because there might well be listeners out there, in fact, I'm sure there are, who are thinking, oh, I really want to create my own CPD, I really want to write a book, or I really want to branch out and start seeing that kind of client, or whatever it is.
I'll do it next year, or I'll do it when I have
Yeah.
time, or I'll do it after I do this course, or it's never the
Mm,
right time because when we don't start, we can't fail. But if we don't start, we don't do anything.
yeah.
And it's important to always have a space where it's okay to fail,
Mm,
even if it's buy yourself a coloring book and color outside the lines
yeah.
quite a lot, deliberately. And
Yeah.
I have some client work who that takes a lot of practice. They
Mm,
don't give themselves that space in their world to not be perfect.
mm,
But where do I create that space in me?
mm.
And then
Yeah.
I feel like a fraud, which goes down the whole perfectionism, imposter syndrome. Oh my God, I'm really bad at this. You know, I'm asking my clients to do things. I have to be prepared to do them myself,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is why I said yes to being on a podcast.
Mm, mm. And how are you feeling about that right now?
I'm trying to pretend it's not happening.
Hmm.
So I'll get through it and it will be fine because whatever happens, it's creating a space in me to be okay with not being comfortable.
Yeah.
And it'll give me, I hope, more of an understanding of how perfectionism and quicksands and all of this impact me and my life.
Mm,
And if I know how they exist in my world, then it gives me a chance of figuring out how to not have as big an impact. In
mm,
order to change a direction of something I don't like, I need to know where I am first.
mm. Yes.
So I can,
Yes.
there's an old Irish joke of, sure, I can give you directions to that place, but you're starting in the wrong place. You need to start from, 20 miles down that way. I can't work on helping myself to grow beyond self imposed limitations if I don't know where I'm starting from.
Mm.
I have to be able to see that and know that and not necessarily agree with it, but at least acknowledge that it exists.
Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And in my case, for instance, it's about saying, actually, Beth, sort of saying, oh, yeah, let's just record again. Let's try it once more. It's a case of asking myself, is that the perfectionist rearing its head there? And um, also, I was just thinking, it's quite nice actually. So in the program, with these quicksands, including perfectionism, what we do is kind of think about what can be the antidote for that quicksand. And in the case of
Yeah.
perfectionism, it's creativity. And I've just realized actually that is what we have done doing this podcast today, because we today was meant to be for re-recording the first podcast. Instead, are recording a different podcast, And we've been creative in the moment by using the current circumstances to make a podcast.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying you're going to think it's the most wonderful thing in the world, you know, but I tell you this, it is a real conversation,
Yep. Yep.
and that's important. A real conversation that wouldn't have happened if we were doing a re-recording.
And a re-recording that would have us second guessing and trying to recreate something that wasn't there wasn't anything wrong with it.
Mm.
But in our own standards, our own perfectionism, obviously if something goes very badly wrong, like, somebody bursts into the room or the place burns down, obviously then we'll re-record because there's a limit to
Yes.
there's a
Yes.
limit to how much, how much support you can give for lack of perfectionism.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mm. Yeah, because actually, you've just reminded me that just so I'll set the scene. We're recording this in early September, and um, you may or may not remember that early September, autumn very much decided that it had arrived, and it had arrived in the form of thundery rain, very heavy thundery rain. And I was sitting here earlier on thinking, oh, that's really loud. Are we going to be able to record the podcast? But that's actually the point. Stuff happens,
yeah.
and sometimes we have to work with, what happens and
And
what's
it
going
happens
on.
mid-session as well,
Yeah,
in the middle of a session, if your client's phone goes off, or God forbid, your own phone goes off because you've been human and you've not switched it off, or the room gets interrupted, or there was in Oxford last year or the year before, there was a huge explosion a couple of miles away and it interrupted a session I was in the middle of. Or when Our Late Majesty Queen Elizabeth passed away, I was in an online session which crashed. We work around what we have
mm,
and we create a space with what we have. You can wait until everything is perfect to start, or you can just start.
yeah, 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 absolutely. I remember once I knocked over a glass and broke it in my room just as a client was arriving. And, I mean, you couldn't make it up really, but, I could, that was a complete pain. And I could have beaten myself up about that. And maybe I did a little bit, I'm not sure. But there's no point. It's not, I didn't do it deliberately. It was an accident. Accidents happen. And most people understand that as well.
And we model good behavior to our clients. Why can't we model good behavior with ourselves
Mm,
and be okay with being okay?
yeah.
Not every client out there is my client. Not every hairdresser out there is my hairdresser, you know,
Mm,
and that's okay.
yeah.
It's okay to not being perfect. I would rather be imperfect in 1,000 ways than be perfect in one because you have a hell of a lot more fun.
Mm,
And the memories are amazing
yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
Yeah.
Some things you do have to be perfect on. But if it's something you're choosing, great. But it can't be everything. Nobody is perfect at everything. You have Olympic athletes who, for a very short space of time, a very small window, can get a gold medal. But if that competition had been 6 months earlier or 6 months later, the outcome would have been completely different.
Mm,
And even if you are a gold medal winning athlete, I can promise you there are parts of your world where things are not so great. You
mm,
know, you might be on your third marriage, or you might be very broke, or you might, you know, there's 1,000 ways that nobody is perfect at everything.
no. No.
And I'd rather be good enough at what I do, providing help and
Mm,
support for people.
mm.
But I would also like to give myself the same space to be good enough at providing support for myself.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Space where I can be me without always carrying my workload.
Mm,
Weekends, turning the emails off on my phone,
mm.
kind of, and being okay with just being me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
remembering who that is
Mm.
without my therapist hat on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you talking about sort of turning the phone off, it sort of made me think about sort of the Instagram mentality of everything looking perfect, and all the rest of it. When actually you're not seeing the reality of what's going on. And I think
No,
that
you're
that's,
not.
to be fair, something that can feed into our profession as well. Most of us, a lot of us have social media for our practices or whatever, or we look at other social media. And if it all looks perfect and all the rest of it, or there's somebody sort of doing, I don't know, updates every 5 minutes or something, and you're thinking, how have they got time to do that?
Yeah,
It just further feeds into the idea that we should be doing things perfectly. Um,
I'd love to find out from anyone who's watching this. I'd love to find out from you, Beth. What what are the quicksands that we can identify in our own worlds? Where are the points where we get stuck? Where are the bits that get stuck that we don't necessarily know about, you know,
mm,
that
mm.
maybe other people can see and we're like, no, 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 that's fine. That's fine. I'm always leaving the office 3 hours late because, you know, or I'm always way behind on notes. Everybody is. Um, it's about being able to name them first.
Yeah, yeah. So, as I've mentioned today, I think when you're running a private practice, or equally when you're working a paid role as a counsellor, there are lots of ways that these quicksands, which include perfectionism, which include imposter syndrome, people pleasing, rescuing, going it alone, and there's also a scarcity mentality as well. And there's martyrdom and there's justice seeking. These are all the quicksands that I've talked about in the Nurture Counsellor program. And there were just really subtle and kind of unexpected ways that I think that they can rear their heads in practice. Because yes, when we do our training, we find a lot out about ourselves. We probably have a lot of therapy, or at least some therapy. And we might, for instance, have got a lot better at communicating with our family. Maybe we've got better at having about putting in boundaries with our families. But it doesn't necessarily mean we're prepared for the kind of situations that can come up in private practice or in a paid role. And so, say for instance, one of one of uh, one of the things that I think that can come up a lot is with something like scarcity mentality, for instance. So scarcity mentality is when we're almost kind of in survival mode. And it could be maybe, people out there might relate to this at the moment in terms of private practice, because I know that a lot of people have been struggling to get the numbers in. And particularly maybe if we come from a background where there are financial difficulties or certain attitudes around money, I think that we can sort of flip into that survival mode and think things like, oh, well, for example, I didn't, I'm going to go outside my usual schedule. I'm going to work on Thursday evenings because I need the money. Somebody needs a Thursday evening session. It puts me out. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do that. And okay, I can understand somebody doing that. But you have to consider what it does for your well-being, and also that it sort of sets a precedent. It's like, well, what do I say no to now? Well, I said yes to that, so I'll say yes to this now. And it also comes up with things like, people asking for reduced fees and things like that. And that can be a whole mixture of things, from things like from scarcity mentality, because it might be, oh, I need to give this person what they're asking for, because I might not have any more clients come my way. So I'm going to do that, even though actually it's below what I'd usually offer, or it might be a people-pleasing thing as well. That, oh, I don't want to upset this person, so I'm going to
But it's
agree to
also
that.
the expectation from outside the industry where, oh, you're a therapist,
Mm.
you're really nice.
Yes,
Part of our
yes,
training, we are
yes,
programmed to work for free.
yes.
And then when we start actually charging people for it, there's the whole kind of, then you go into guilt, and then you go into shame, and then, oh, I'm not good enough to charge that amount of money. Um, and it's just about other people looking in, going, but you're a therapist. They really need the help, and you can help them. Are you choosing not to?
Mm. Yeah.
When did you become money oriented? It's because, well, that's when they started charging for food and rent and petrol.
Mm.
That's when I became money oriented. Um,
Yes.
but it's just really difficult to. We have to. One of the protections against perfectionism, against quicksands, against these things, is having really healthy boundaries in place, whatever that looks like.
Mm.
And
Yes.
it comes up with something we're going to cover on another podcast. But the having healthy boundaries in place will, a boundary with myself. I have to be okay with not being okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I'm not allowed to beat myself up because 3 sessions ago I said something that was a bit funny, or my stomach went off, or,
Mm.
God forbid, I
Mm.
farted. Because, it happens. We
Mm.
have bodies, they're human, they do things that we don't like. Um, and we have to be okay with not reaching these glorious standards of perfection that other people tell us we have to,
Mm,
you know.
mm, yeah, yeah. And it's definitely, very true about boundaries. They are so important. And, for those counselors and therapists out there, you can be forgiven for kind of thinking, oh, well, I know all about boundaries. That's one of the most important things. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Yes,
But do you
absolutely.
use them?
What and but also as well, the boundaries that we are taught in our training, like obviously there's confidentiality boundaries, there's time boundaries, there's boundaries around dual relationships, and that kind of thing. But there are lots of other boundaries that aren't talked about, because actually they're more important to the counsellor. And that is things like, it could be around the niche that you work in. What kind of things that do I want to actually be talking about on a day-to-day basis? So if you accept a client of, oh, actually, that they want to discuss bereavement, and actually, I'm not, I don't think I should be doing that at the moment, but
Yeah.
we do that. I mean, that's not going to be good for you, and I'm not sure that's going to be good for anybody.
boundaries don't always look like boundaries. Perfectionism doesn't always look like perfectionism.
Perfectionism can look like, oh no, let's just do it again. Just, because
Yeah,
I'll be able to change. I know what I need
yeah.
to change. I could be able to change that.
I'm going to be the perfect therapist. Of course, I can see you at 7 o'clock on a Thursday morning. Totally. Yeah. In person, absolutely. Yeah, too. Yeah.
Mm.
No, no.
So I feel like with using our creativity, Neve, to as the antidote to perfectionism,
Yeah,
I think we've created something.
yeah,
We've created a podcast, and for me, I think it's an important conversation because it's about all these different sort of tendencies that we might not want to admit to ourselves that it still happen
yeah,
sometimes. Um, and it's about, you know, talking about it and bringing it out into the open so that it can help somebody realize, oh God, yeah, actually, maybe that's why I'm so tired because I keep
yeah.
doing everything 3 times.
We're normalizing. I hope that this conversation and this podcast will normalize being normal,
Mm,
being human, being okay with just being okay, and introducing creativity, having being able to laugh at not being perfect. It's a great being able to laugh at ourselves
mm,
for pretending that we're perfect.
mm.
You know, you find your balance with it. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's a free for all. It doesn't mean that suddenly I'm able to do whatever I want in a session and it's okay because, you know, I'm okay with it. But
yeah. Bethany
we,
said it don't need to be perfect, so it's all right.
no,
No, it's not. It's not about that. We all, but we know that, I said earlier, generally speaking, counselors and therapists are passionate people who really want to make a difference.
yes,
But we need to do that and look after ourselves
if we can do it in a
in the
way that
process.
that means that we don't run ourselves into the ground, into the quicksand,
Mm,
we have to look after ourselves first. When this is a metaphor I use quite a lot in sessions, when you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask comes down, what do they tell you? They tell you to put on your own mask first before you help anyone else. It's the same on a ship when they're throwing out life jackets. You put your own on first. We have to look after ourselves, and we have to look after ourselves properly,
yeah, yeah.
not perfectly.
Mm, mm. So I think we've come full circle today. But I was wondering, because I think it's apt, what are you going to do to look after yourself after this? I know this is a standard question we might often ask our clients. I'm going to ask you that now.
What am I doing for the rest of the day to make myself a priority? Actually, there's a book I've been meaning to read that is one of my comfort books, and it's just never been the right time. It's never been, there's always kind of a load of laundry to put on, and I'm coming from a week where we've had a leak in our flat, so there's a lot of catching up to do at home. Now that that's sorted, but I think I'm actually going to make a space so that I can just read.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. I'm actually going to the cinema with my other half, and I'm actually quite looking forward to sitting in a darkened room. I don't know what the film's going to be like, but that in itself will be nice, I think.
Yay, a night out.
Yeah.
We're such grown-ups.
Thanks ever so much today for the conversation today, Neve.
Oh,
means
thanks.
a lot.
Thank you for, this is what Beth and I get up to in a coffee shop. This is how Teapot was born. This is
Yeah.
This is just two humans being human.
Yeah. It's good to show off the origins, I think.
Definitely.
So enjoy your reading.
Enjoy your movie.
Thank you very much.
Or your film.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.